What's up, everybody? Welcome. My name is Patrick Curtis. I am the CEO and founder of Wall Street Oasis. I just wanted to start today. This is our first live stream here. It looks like, guys, we're having a little bit of problems with posting it to LinkedIn. Let's see, blah, blah, blah. Amir or Nabil, are you guys seeing this on LinkedIn Live? Hey, Phil, can you hear me? I see you're coming in now. I think we lost Nabil. Amir, if you want to ping him. Or do you guys see it in LinkedIn? Just want to make sure before I get started that we have everybody, because we're streaming right now to Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, and Instagram. So I just wanted, before we kick off, I wanted to make sure we got everybody. Phil, can you hear me? So I guess, yeah, go ahead, Amir.
We're live on all platforms.
Great. So I think we're good. Awesome. So let's start. So real quick, my name is Patrick Curtis. If you don't know who I am, I'm the founder and CEO of Wall Street Oasis. I started my career at Rothschild during the 2002 crisis. I also graduated from business school in 2010 from Wharton, right after the 2008 great financial crisis. So I'm very familiar kind of trying to find a job or being around people who are really struggling to find a job during a really tough time period, of which I'd say we are either in or about to enter in over the next 6 to 12 months, as we're starting to see a lot more layoffs. So I'm just going to share a short presentation here so we can go through a little bit of an agenda. And if, I really want to save most of this live stream for Q&As, because I think that's a lot more fun than just me talking at you. So we'll just go through a quick little intro here, talk about the headwinds of the economy real quick today, how to survive and thrive in this economy. And then we'll actually do a fun little thing we've done in some of our other calls, like with interns, but we're going to do a quick resume review. 2 different resumes from some of our younger interns to show you kind of 2 different types and kind of how we'd look to improve them. And then I'll open it up for questions from all of you from all the different live streams. We have people kind of on standby to help with the IG questions, because I know there's a lot of you IG is one of our more popular platforms. So there'll probably be most questions coming in through there. So real quick, so that's the agenda. Any questions to start? Okay, great. So again, my background, I think I already went over that. CEO and founder of Wall Street Oasis. What is Wall Street Oasis? For those of you that don't know, Wall Street Oasis is the largest online community focused on careers in finance. So it started back in 2006, just as a forum. Over the years, we've offered a lot of different services. One of the first we did was coming out with interview courses back in 2009. That was really to help focus more on like investment banking and helping college students and young finance professionals try to figure out a way how to break into investment banking. And eventually it was a private equity interview course. We launched a hedge fund interview course. We even had one for prop trading. And more recently, we've started moving a little bit more into the technical skills training side of things. So that includes financial modeling training, private equity deal process, and the like. So why are we doing this event? So, given that we have a large forum, we see there is a lot of anxiety, a lot of kind of panic out there for a good reason. Initially it was mostly large tech companies announcing mass layoffs, but we've started to see that along with the banks as well. And so you can see here, these are just some of the more recent forum topics on Wall Street Oasis. So Morgan Stanley layoffs, IB layoffs in general. I just got laid off, Citi layoffs, and then some of the top, Wall Street Journal mentioning some of those as well. So, tens of thousands of layoffs happening worldwide. And so we're seeing it in the forums. We're hoping that this live stream could kind of help some of you that are either trying to break in or some of you who are trying to survive there do just that. So that's kind of the point of this whole live stream. So, headwinds in the economy today, really, I don't think it's a secret, but inflation, rising inflation post-pandemic, lots of easy money for a long time to try to keep the global economy from crashing when everybody was stuck at home. Has now led to, the highest interest rates since 2008 to try and bring some of that inflation under control. We're having massive layoffs, but unemployment is still relatively low, historically speaking. So the fear is that the Fed will continue to have to raise rates, and there's going to be obviously a big lag effect, and it could lead to massive layoffs and potentially a larger recession. Obviously, we're all hoping that there's a softer landing, but we'll have to wait and see. How to survive and thrive in the economy. I'm sorry, it's a little bit blocked in the upper left-hand corner, but it says survive and thrive. So first off, everyone says, oh, network. It's easy to say. What does that actually mean? So first off, before you do any serious networking, I think it's really important that you make sure certain files are ready to go. So number one, your resume needs to be updated if you haven't updated it recently. And then your LinkedIn needs to be ready to go, meaning when somebody comes across it, they get a sense of, who you are, what value you can add to their organization. So that means make sure there's a professional photo on LinkedIn. Make sure you're smiling. Make sure there's not just, very brief things written there. You don't have to have your entire resume listed there and all the bullets, but it's helpful if you can give some context about the specific initiatives you led at certain firms or certain internships and the results that those had. So once those are kind of dialed in, that should be like 1 to 2 days where you really focus on it. I think the next thing you want to do, also make sure you include awards and achievements on those as well. So once that's done, you kind of want to rekindle any old networks you had. So, if you don't have a strong network, you haven't really put in the time to do that. One of the ways you can do that is just use LinkedIn. Literally, you could be reaching out, sending connection requests to 100 people a day. Out of those 100 people, you say 100 people, it's not going to take you forever. It doesn't take a long time. It takes probably 30 seconds to send out a connection request. From that 100, maybe only 20 will accept the connection request. From that 20, maybe you'll get on 1 to 2 calls. But that's okay. That's like, if you're doing that 100 a day, that's like 1 to 2 calls a day, and it starts stacking. So you're like, man, that's a lot of work, right? So the reason why we're suggesting doing this is because the more people you talk to, the better your chances that are landing an interview. And more important than all of that is that when you're talking to people, you start opening up an entirely new job market that isn't on your Indeeds, it isn't on your job boards, it's not even with Wall Street Oasis. It's the shadow job market. There are, I think, about 5 times, I think I've read somewhere, there's 5 times the number of jobs available in the shadow job market than there is in the open job market. So what do I mean by shadow job market? I mean that jobs that are never actually posted anywhere. So the only way you hear about them is knowing about people who are already in the industry. So if you're just talking to the people at your firm or in your school or in your club or whatnot, you're not going to even ever hear about these opportunities because you just haven't talked to enough people. If you are talking to 10 people a week, getting on calls that are 15, 20 minutes, developing relationships, you're going to start hearing about these opportunities. And it might allow you to number one, find a job if you get laid off, or number two, maybe the layoff's coming and you can lateral before that happens. And so then you're not left with this large gap in the resume. So the thing you want to try to avoid is being blindsided and suddenly, getting laid off and then having this long gap on your resume. Even in a recession, it doesn't look good. It looks like you haven't prepped it means like, okay, well, they got laid off. It's probably because of the recession, but maybe there was some performance element to it. So you don't want to be in that position. You'd rather lateral, get to a safer spot, to a firm that's still hiring, which is a great sign, than to be stuck in a ship that's sinking and a ship that's slashing jobs aggressively. So keep that in mind. So that's really how you got to do it. You have to put in the legwork. You got to get everything tidied up with your resume and your LinkedIn. And then you got to start reaching out to people. Now, for some of you, it'll be easier because you've already put in a lot of that legwork to get the job in the first place. So it'll be about rekindling those old relationships. It'll be about making sure that, it's genuine. You don't want to wait to do that once you're laid off. You want to do that before you're laid off. So if you feel like nervous or anything, don't put your head in the sand. Start talking to people, asking them how things are going at their firm. Start talking to people outside of, let's say you're in investment banking. Start talking to people outside of investment banking, maybe corporate development, corporate finance, tech, startups. Start trying to broaden your horizons so that you have some options should things go south or further south. So that kind of leads us into kind of career management in general. So the lateral moves, again, you're not going to hear about them. Lateral moves are really one of the best examples of like a shadow job market. It's very rare. There's that like a large bank will broadcast broadly that, oh, we need a new analyst for this specific group. The only way you're going to hear about that job is if you've talked to somebody in that group or in that division at that firm. So keep that in mind. You are missing out on opportunities if you're not putting in the legwork. So really, how could you think about this career management? Really, all I'd say is you should be aiming for at least 2 calls per week with people outside at different places, outside your division, different industries, not just your little subgroup. And even if you have lost your job, it's not too late. It just means that you should try to treat that as your full-time job. So I hope everyone can still hear me. We good, Amir? I've been ranting and raving here, but I'm really passionate about this stuff, and I think we'll get to the Q&A soon. Amir, you can still hear.
Just a little comment. Instagram and YouTube isn't live.
What is not live?
Instagram and YouTube.
It's not live.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. So we'll keep going. So maybe we can release it later if it's recorded. But so I think a couple other things you can do for career management. So besides reaching out to people, you can sharpen your skills. You're using interview courses and modeling courses like the ones we offer. There's a lot out there. The interview courses that we have that are some of the really popular ones are the investment banking interview course or the private equity interview course to strengthen your financial modeling. If you're already at a large bank and you've had that training, maybe you want to take a self-study financial modeling course to help you with make sure you're faster in Excel, faster in financial statement modeling, faster in DCF, and you understand the theory better. So you become better at interviewing as well. And the other thing, if you're not really sure where to start for the resume review, we do offer a resume review service as well as a mentor service. A lot of people use our mentor service for mock interviews and the like. So let me just get a quick sip of coffee. And then we're going to also share for free on this to all of you. We'll share a template for a networking template for all of you and a networking a resume template that you guys can leverage so that you don't have to be guessing about what works or not. So I'm going to just quickly jump to a resume review. Sorry, jump too fast. And this is going to be just a quick overview of a couple different resumes. So let me see if I can zoom in here so if you guys can see it. Whoops. There we go. A little bigger. So here's a resume, not bad. What I like to do is first step back to resume. And what you'll notice if you zoom out before you even looking at the content, you'll notice there's way too much space at the top, way too much space at the bottom. This person is just not taking advantage of the one precious space they have. So if this is you, maybe because you're a freshman and you feel like I don't have that much to write about, you got to find things to write about. You got to figure out a way to fill up the page. So one obvious place right here would be down here on this additional information. If you look at our template, you should be listing it out like this, where you have a skill section, a modeling section, computer section, and certifications. Excuse me. You should also, very underrated, you should have an interest section on your resume. It's not here, but if you're curious about what that looks like, we can talk about that in the Q&A. But that's one way this person could fill things up. The other two things that are really important here on the resume is that we're quantifying as much as possible. There's a little bit of this. So averaging 45 new membership signups and 3 leaderships per week. Try to have a little bit of results if you can, resulting in X, Y, Z. Quantify. So any chance you get to quantify anything, please do that. It helps. It's been proven that the more quantification on your resume, the better it's received. So, I mean, these bullets are actually pretty strong. Spearheaded DM outreach to grow memberships by 15%, marketed events with an average of 18% new participants. How much better was that than previously? That's an opportunity right there. So this resume actually quantifies pretty well. Where it's lacking is it's just too much white space. If you look at our resume template, there's ways you can add in things like completed the Wall Street Oasis self-study course covering valuation, M&A, and LBO. If you joined our internship, you could write things like this, wrote 50,000 words across 20 articles on detailed financial Excel, blah, blah, blah. Basically, you can fill your resume up with keywords that both bots and humans will like. So that's the goal here. The bullets are great here, but there just needs to be more finance-y oriented stuff. And you need to just kind of stretch it out a little bit so that you don't even need as wide. You could have a little bit more cushion here on the sides. It doesn't need to be as wide if you have this much space at the top and the bottom. So that's this one. This other resume kind of has the opposite problem. We're going on to 2-page, which is a big no-no. So how do we actually shorten this? Well, one is kind of a font. This looks a little bit like a wide font. It looks like a serif. This can probably be brought onto 2 lines. It looks like they're not using like a table format. So they're having some odd kind of like the date is in the same line as their bullet. It's just a little bit confusing. Where you want to have space is above the main sections. You don't want to be jamming up the main sections here. You're saying, but wait a second, he's already too tight on space. How can we do this? Well, but I mean, look at this. He could probably get these 3 bullets into 2. He could probably get, does he really need to have audiovisual technician and photographer editor for this role? Does he really need to have that in 2 separate roles? Does a finance person really care that they were both audiovisual and photographer? No, they don't care. So just get it into 1 and put this in. This whole thing should be 2 bullets. Again, try to figure out where are you actually applying to? Austin's asking, how are the templates going to be transmitted? We can send them. I don't know if I can send it through the chat here, but we can do something like where you drop your email to Amir at wallstreetoasis.com, and he could get you that stuff. So, but like this resume, these bullets are just simply weak here. There's very little like utilize my data analysis skills and financial literacy skills in writing and SEO. Like we have an actual bullet, exactly what you should be saying for our internship. Wrote 50,000 words across 20 articles. Notice the quantification. Include detailed financial evaluation, Excel, accounting. We're getting all these rich keywords in here. This person's literally just saying like financial literacy skills, blah, blah, blah. Aggrandizing my overall knowledge. Like, what is this? What's this word? Why are you using that? Why are you trying to sound smart? It just looks dumb. So I know it's kind of mean. Sorry, but my point is like the format's not bad. It should be 1 page. This person's still an undergrad. It should definitely be 1 page. And this stuff that is less important should be de-emphasized. And this Wall Street Oasis, any sort of finance internship, assuming they're trying to get into that, should be expanded and quantified more. So any questions on that? Specifically on, here, let me show this. This is the email you want to hit up if you want some of these templates. We'll get them out to you. We'll get let me actually show you this networking template we can send over to you guys. Right here, it has senior level, junior level, coworkers in college, family. Tabs for different that. It'll keep your the current date, and it'll show you how many days since you last contacted them, and it'll turn different colors to indicate whether it's time to reach out again. So now that we did the resume review, I wanted to open it up to questions. Miranda, you can use the email that's on the screen. You should see it, hopefully, on the screen. It's Amir at wallstreetoasis.com, AMIR at wallstreetoasis.com, and we'll get you the resume template. We'll get you the networking template. And then one thing I wanted to do, we do have a bonus for those of you that stick around, a discount for our investment banking interview course, $100 discount, our private equity interview course in our elite modeling package for more of the financial modeling training. We'll also send those links. That's going to be valid for the next hour for those. But I do want it open for Q&A right now and just answer any questions that any of you have regarding anything, really. So I think, Nabil, you're joined. Is anyone, I don't know if Instagram failed to broadcast, but are we seeing any other questions? I see one here on LinkedIn. I see, how do you see the impact of OpenAI's ChatGPT on regular IT jobs, like developers and analysts? thanks for the question. I think Chat GPT looks very impressive, but I think it's a ways off before it's going to be. I think the initial use cases will be more like chatbots, rather than it be rather than it's going to be actually writing code. From what I've heard, the code that it does write is actually usually wrong. It has a lot of errors in it, so it looks right, so it's even more dangerous. But yeah, is there any other comments? I think we had collected some other questions, so I can pull those up and make sure I have it here.
We have a question that has been sent through LinkedIn.
Okay.
A question from David. I just got laid off. Tips on surviving until I find my next job.
One is try to reduce your cash burn immediately. So if that means getting a roommate, if that means moving back in with family, I think that's all smart, because I don't know what your financial situation is, but when you have no income coming in at the top, you want to make sure you reduce your cash burn each month. So that means being smart about not eating out, doing all the things you do if you are tight with budget. The second thing you got to do to survive is, I think, just go start doing the exact things I said. Get your resume polished, updated, use our template if you like. And then also make sure your LinkedIn's polished and start that outreach aggressively. It should be your full-time job. If you got laid off, that is now your full-time job. You went from whatever 8 hours to 15 hours a day working. That's how much time you should be spending talking with people, reaching out to people, connecting with people, talking to people in the industry, trying to find where your skill set might actually be valuable. So let's see what else we got here. Here you go. Analyst lateraling in London. What are the key differences to graduate versus intern interviews? I read technicals are the same level of difficulty. Honestly, Philip, I would say that usually, at least here in the US, the lateraling interviews can be similar technically, but sometimes they're less technical because they assume if you've already been on the job for a while as a lateral, they want to know more like, are you a cultural fit? So I would not underestimate the behavioral aspect of the interviews, because usually after someone's in banking for a year or so, I mean, it depends. If you're trying to lateral after 6 months, I would assume they're still going to grill you technically. But if it's been like a year and a half, 2 years, you're probably going to get more of the behavioral stuff, trying to figure out, are you a good person to work with? Do you have the right attitude? That type of stuff. So I'd make sure that again, network, talk to as many people in the group that you're interviewing with as you can prior to the interview. And then second, I would just try to make sure your behaviorals are on point in terms of like showing, having examples of how you pitch in for the team and how you like go above and beyond, and you're not like first out the door. Let's see here. This is a great question. How would you recommend navigating the job market if someone has a return offer, but the return offer is canceled due to layoffs? So if that happened to you, I think it's an easy story for interviews. So I think it's going to be a volume game and a numbers game here. So I think you obviously have to be less picky. So, and this is something that like a lot of people have trouble getting their head around, is like, would you rather be unemployed or at a job that's tangentially related? Which one do you think is better? It's much better to have a job that's tangentially related, or even still investment banking, but at a no-name boutique bucket shop. That's still much better. At least you're getting some sort of valuation work and DCF work and building your resume with the right skill set. That gives you time to potentially lateral. You can always lateral upstream as things improve again. It's been years where I can't tell you how many lower middle market and boutique banks have come to us and said, we really need a senior analyst. We need somebody. So if you're able to develop those skills within a year or two, you become highly in demand, especially if you're willing to be location agnostic and travel and even live in the Midwest. There's a lot of banks out there I know that really need analysts and senior analysts help. So that's what I would recommend. Anything from Insta, Amir? Am I missing anything? Or Nabil? Let's see. Oh, here's a good one. It's a long one. When preparing for PE associate role interview process, main parts: behavioral, technicals, market, industry awareness, modeling, building LBO sections, and others. Maybe many out there tend to spend much of the time perfecting and building LBOs 3-hour and 4-hour tests. I think it may be an overkill. I'd be better spent time on other parts, especially market awareness and behavioral. How would you weight those sections on importance, and how much? Let's see. Let me see if I can read the rest to everybody. And how much time? I think it cut off. So how much would I weight those various sections? It's a great question. I think there's like certain levels you need to get on each of those. So remember that, private equity associate interview processes are incredibly competitive. So it's not enough just to be like smart, on the market section and understanding what private equity is and all that stuff. You really have to be good at paper LBOs, especially because sometimes the LBO modeling test isn't that hard. It's not a 3-hour or 4-hour. Sometimes it's just a 45-minute test. I know when I did my private equity LBO test, it was, they put me in a room with a few prompts, and within 30 to 40 minutes, I was done. And I was like, what did I miss? And I didn't miss anything. It was just like, hey, check the box. Can you quickly build something out? And they were timing just to see, like, was I in there for 2 hours, which I shouldn't have been. And so within 30 to 40 minutes, I checked my numbers, checked everything. It looked fine. And then I was out, and it was, that was it. It was a check the box. And I think oftentimes people do get wound up. I think more on-cycle recruiting with the 3 and the 4-hour tests are more common. But yeah, I think definitely knowing the mechanics of an LBO, more importantly, being able to talk about your deals if you're in investment banking, or if you're in consulting, being able to talk about your engagements as if they're an investment is very important. One of the most important things. So I'd put like a 30 or 40% weight on that. I put like a 30% weight, 30 or 40% weight overall in the LBO modeling tests and the PE cases. So LBO modeling tests are often now kind of blended together with the private equity case, meaning it's not just about can you spit out the IRR and the multiple of invested capital on an LBO model, but it's given like a sim, and basically you're expected to talk about the entire industry, whether it's a good investment, why or why not, what are the risks associated with that. So they want to see, like, are you able to dive into financials and look through, like, is there customer concentration? Is this a cyclical industry? What makes a good private equity investment? Is it stable cash flows or not? How much leverage can we put on this business? How do we juice returns? What magnifies returns? What doesn't? So I think if you're able to speak fluidly about that, I think that's a lot more important. But honestly, you're right. Most people focus so heavily on the LBO because it scares them the most that they're a little bit weaker on the other parts. And so, yeah, you can stand out a little bit if you're sharper talking about the investment thesis and that side of things. But I think you still need to know the LBO stuff to actually make it through. Here we go. So Phillips asks, I'm worrying about potential gaps in my CV following layoffs. Here, I'll share this here. Third-party recruiters are sounding pretty bleak after initial calls on new analysts 2 and 3 IB hiring. Is there a length of time, e.g. 2 months before alarm bells start sounding for the interviewer? So Philip, I think first off, I think you have to realize that there's a little bit more leeway when you're in a recession for alarm bells to start ringing, especially if you were at a decent name where there were some mass layoffs. Everyone recognizes it's really tough to actually get those jobs in the first place. So I think where alarm bells probably start ringing is more around the 4 to 6 month time frame. 2 months, as long as you're being active and talking with people and getting into processes, I wouldn't see people, freaking out, especially, knowing where you came from and knowing that it had nothing to do with your performance. So you don't have to panic yet, but I would go pedal to the metal for sure in terms of just like trying to get in as many processes as possible. You have to remember, like, interviews is skill like anything else. So if you take a ton of time to just get like 1 or 2 interviews, like if you take a month before you go on your first interview, or you take 2 months before you're on your first interview, you're probably not going to get the job from that first interview, or even that 5th interview. It might take 8 to 10. So just because you're going to be more polished once you've kind of gone through it a few times. So just keep that in mind to try and get up to speed as fast as possible.
We have a really interesting question being asked frequently. Do certifications matter while searching for a job?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just a screening or proxy mechanism like any other. Just like when you're applying as an undergrad, banks and firms are lazy and they'll use GPA as a proxy. Yeah, certifications can help kind of clear the bar, especially if it helps you network. So if like you're a CFA holder and you're applying for like an asset management or a job at Fidelity, for example, yeah, it absolutely goes noticed. One of my mentees, Victor's now, he has a job at Fidelity and he's now like getting his CFP and his CFA. He's going to go for CFA after, not because he needs it for his job, but just because he knows it helps give him credibility. So I think having those in your back pocket, it's just another check mark, makes you a little bit more competitive in the overall market. It's definitely not like an automatic pass through the interview. But yeah, I think it can help. So, if you do have that time, I would be careful though. What I fear is everyone's asking about certifications because they're going to go do that now that they're laid off. And I think that's actually a really bad use of your time. Because like the return on like getting a job should be like number one focus, assuming, you don't have somebody to pay for your living expenses. So that's what I would say. Let's see here. Let's see here if this is a good.
We have a question from Rohan.
Yeah.
For an individual who wants to get into finance with no experience, what would you recommend learning first? IB, accounting, financial modeling, etc.
If they want to get into where?
Finance.
If they want to get into finance is pretty broad. It's a broad question, but if you're talking investment banking, I'd focus on financial modeling and valuation. If you want to get into like asset management or investing, like hedge funds, asset management, like a Fidelity type thing, I'd focus on the CFA, and following the markets really closely and making sure you can do your stock pitches and all that. Miranda says, I'm going to prep my job applications. Thanks for the feedback. Awesome, Miranda. Just shoot Amir an email if you want to get the templates that I showed today. Hey, Pat, is there anything an incoming analyst should be worried about with the recent layoffs? Yeah, keeping your job. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Yeah, I'd be worried if I was an incoming analyst. I think the good news is you're the most, you're not the most cost efficient because the first year analysts, the second year analysts are the most cost efficient, but you are relatively cheap labor. So usually what happens is in a recession, it's usually the associates and the VPs that are most at risk. Usually the second year analysts and even the first years coming in are typically spared. But yeah, I would not. I would be worried especially if it gets really, really deep cuts, and especially if you're at a firm that's struggling more, and you're seeing global IB revenue way down, and you're going into IB, for example. So I would say that you should be talking to your network, keeping it warm before you hear bad news. So a lot of people they get that job and they're they kick their feet up and they're and to be fair, that's usually fine. But I think in this case, I think you should really, I think you should be worried. I think you should be talking to people because you don't want to be you don't want to be in the situation where you're asking for a job or you're talking to somebody just because you've just been laid off. And apologies to the person who said, "What should I do?" But now he or she has to do that. Ideally, you're making those connections and rewarming that network before that's the case. So, so Joe said, I got cut. He said, I got cut my first year. We just started over the summer. Hey, Joe, sorry to hear that. That's really fast and it's rare. What I'd ask of you is did you have any other firms that were interested in hiring you that you made it to final rounds? Try to kind of talk to some of those people, ask them, what they've heard. If you're a first year analyst at a bank, you're kind of at that cusp where you're probably starting to become more efficient. Do you have any transaction experience on your resume that you can leverage? Because if you can show that you had a few deals under your belt, it's shocking to be someone to be cutting an analyst right when they're becoming most efficient. 6 months to a year is when you kind of are fully ramped and you are the most cost-effective labor pool. So that's shocking, but I'm sorry to hear that.
We have a question from Austin. If transitioning from financial advising into IB, is the elite modeling package a good start? And what other certification would you pursue?
Yes. So it depends. If you feel like if you're transitioning, the elite modeling package is more like developing the skills that are on the job. The investment banking interview course is the investment banking interview course is more for like breaking into the job. Sorry, I got a message saying that our LinkedIn just broke the connection. Hopefully I can get that back. Let's see here. There we go. We are reconnected. So yeah, I think it depends where you are. If you feel like you're really good with interviewing already, you already have the basic accounting down, you understand technical interview questions, you kind of get that sense. I think the elite modeling package is going to be more bang for your buck in the sense of developing your skill set related to investment banking. So like, quickly being able to build, LBO models, M&A, accretion dilution analysis, DCFs, doing trading comps and precedent transactions. It's going to teach you all of that. And then just making sure your Excel skills are dialed in with all the quick keys and you're learning to play the instrument properly and developing the right habits. So I would say in terms of bang for your buck, like skill development, definitely the elite package. In terms of like if you're starting a little bit more from scratch in terms of like trying to break in, I'd say the IB interview course. That's kind of depressing hearing about all these cuts. Oh yeah, Austin, that was Austin's question. And what other certifications would you pursue? Honestly, for IB, there aren't many certifications that, to break in. It's not the CFA isn't really kind of viewed, the CFP, CAI, CIMA, they're more like market oriented and financial planning type certifications. So I think if you're just showing the right skill sets and show that you've done the self-study on like financial modeling, training, and valuation, I think that's going to be the most important piece for your resume and for your CV. No worries, Joe. Yeah, Joe, I would also, besides just like warming up your network, I mean, I think most people are going to be very interested in hearing from you because if you had 6 months, like you honestly are the cheapest. You're the cheapest and most efficient like labor they could potentially have. And I would take a look at our, maybe I can show let me show you some stuff. I'm going to jump back to here real quickly because I want to show you under here, resources, career, elite jobs, Joe. Best finance jobs are hard to find. So if you go here, you'll see some roles here. Experienced IB analyst. You might want to apply for that. That's probably the only one that makes sense right now. But there's some other roles here that might interest you as well. So I'm not sure where you're located, but that's something you want to look at. Again, it's on the site, it's under career. These are all active. Okay, so we're not posting junk. This is stuff we're actively helping our clients try to find talent. So access elite jobs here. So hopefully that's helpful. Sanjit asks, what is the difference between private equity and venture capital? Great question. So Sanjit, we'll even throw growth equity into there because that's another term that is often confusing. So if you think of what is a fund in general, a fund like a limited partner, gross partner. So I think there's a pool of capital. So like high net worth individuals, endowment funds from universities, pension funds, state pension funds, teacher retirement, all this stuff. All of those get pooled into, let's call it Fund A. Okay. Fund A is managed by a firm that can be a venture capital firm, a growth equity firm, or a private equity firm. And sometimes Fund A is managed by a firm that does kind of both private equity and growth equity investments, or growth equity and venture investments. And the difference between any of those, there's actually very little difference. The only difference is that VC tends to be earlier stage investments, and private equity is more like later stage. So what do I mean by earlier stage and later stage? Earlier stage are like VC companies could be like seed or Series A or Series B, where they're in higher growth mode. they're higher risk, tend to be higher valuation, and oftentimes negative cash flow. So they're burning cash. So they're a little bit more speculative. This is oftentimes why you'll see a VC funds will invest out of one whole portfolio, one whole fund. They'll have somewhere between 25 to 100, up to 100 investments. So a lot more shots on target, a lot higher fail rate. But then, if they had invested in what's a good example? If they'd invested in Meta back before they crashed, they would have been a great return on investment. But if they invested in like Amazon early on, it would have been a great return on investment. If they invested in Google, right? So like they'll have a couple huge home runs that tend to carry the fund returns, and the rest of them will either be what they call like dead companies walking, or they'll just a lot of failures and zeros, and they'll just go out of business. But they can still be very successful and generate a very attractive return for investors. VC returns have obviously come under a lot of pressure in this recession, because companies now that have no cash flow and no foreseeable cash flow in the near future with higher interest rates future cash flows get discounted much faster at a what is it, 3+% Fed funds rate than it is 0. So VC think super early stage. Growth equity think a little bit earlier. So usually there's still not debt placed for growth equity investments. It's equity still. So they're not usually leveraging the company. It's often still super high growth, just a little bit further along, like a Series C, Series D, or E. And sometimes it's a little bit closer to when they're going to go public or exit to a strategic, like a strategic sale. And then private equity is kind of even further along, where maybe it's an established business, it's stable, it's generating consistent cash flows, but usually the top line growth isn't as impressive. Private equity fund will come in, they'll leverage the business up with debt to help magnify their returns. So it's kind of like a mortgage on a house. So you know how like I came in, I bought my house, I only put 20% down, and I took a loan from the bank, 80%, and the bank has my house as collateral if I don't pay. Now, if my house goes up 10%, my returns are actually closer to 50%, right? So just a 10% increase in my home value, actually my equity, where since I only put a 20% down, has gone up 10%. That equity portion has now grown by almost 50%. It's juiced my returns. Whereas if I had written the full check as equity, as a growth equity investment, that 10% increase in value is actually just a 10% increase in value. So the opposite can be true. Great financial crisis. This is why you saw so many in 2008. That's why you saw so many homes underwater. What did underwater mean? It means the debt was worth more than the home itself. Scary. That can happen in private equity. Sorry, go ahead.
We have a question from Artem. When prepare for PE case studies that you mentioned earlier, not the LBO tests, would you recommend management consulting interview preparation case studies? Useful, helpful. Thank you.
Yes, management consulting case interview prep is useful or helpful, but I would try to focus more on the private equity cases specifically. They're a little bit more direct. You still need to know like industry mapping and sizing and all of that stuff, and have some of those mental models in your head. But the difference is you need to be talking about like what makes a good private equity investment. And so I would highly recommend our private equity interview course for that. If you're, it's something that like goes through that in detail, so that you're able to kind of map all of your deals to that and kind of say, okay, management team, stable cash flows, is it a capital intensive business, and all these other factors, and being able to like have cheat sheets for your specific deals, or if you're in consulting for your specific engagements, get all the financials on one sheet. So we have these cheat sheets we give as part of the interview course, where you're actually like you're getting all of the points on that you need to memorize before you get into the interview, so that when they're bringing up that specific engagement or that specific deal, if you're in banking, you really can just nail it. You go pop, 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 and drop down and like say exactly why it was good or bad investment. And that's going to come across as more impressive and show that you're ready, more than just like being able to do a paper LBO, for example. What else? Amir, did I answer that? Did I miss a part of that question? I feel like I missed a part of it. Oh, when? You're asking timing. When? Well, on-cycle recruiting happened a few months ago, but it's pretty unpredictable when it happens each year. We've had it happen in February. We've had it happen in September, October, which was this year, which was insane because it was only like 3 months after. COVID kind of threw everything for a loop, so it's hard to know. It's hard to know exactly when it's going to happen, but I usually say the earlier you can start your prep, even if you're busy working full time, like if you can do an hour a week, and kind of do it over several months, it's going to put you in a much better spot than trying to cram like the weekend before. Because when uncycle recruiting happens, it's too late. If you wait till like when the actual recruiters start calling frantically and scheduling, like they're literally calling people from like, let's say a firm goes on Friday afternoon, they'll be calling candidates and scheduling interviews through the night at like 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 5. Like, I'm not kidding, for the next morning. And candidates are ready to answer the phone because they're like, hey, I don't want to miss this shot because it happens once a year. So just food for thought. I would try to prep before that, because you obviously can't be like, oh, I have to suddenly interview on cycle and wait a second, I was meaning to prep my deals, and I was meaning to prep my LBO modeling, and I was meaning to prep all of the PE case prep, but maybe I'll just wing it. Like, there's no point. There's no point in winging. You should just wait till the following year and just start prepping. Here we go. Currently a second-year analyst. Would you recommend? Let's share this on the screen so people can see. People can read this, right? So you reasonably plug and play, assume more and play about the section. Curious to hear your thoughts. Yeah, Philip. Yeah, I can't remember. I think you said you got let go, or you're worried you're going to let go. Yeah, I can't remember if you let go, but yeah, I think I would absolutely look at other sectors. You don't want to have that massive gap, like I said. And if you went for a year or two to, let's say you started working, at an industrial or a consumer retail company, and you had that modeling, let's say you go work in FP&A, or you go work as, chief of staff or a startup in the same TMT space, I think that's going to still look really impressive, and you're probably going to keep building skills that are good for your career long term. So I would absolutely look at going outside the industry. One thing I've learned, if you look at my path, it definitely wasn't straight. For people who don't know, I did 2 years of investment banking at Rothschild. I started at a small firm in private equity in Boston, got fired within, I think, 5 months, got fired. The fund was going under, I learned later. And then ended up at a private equity fund back in New York, where I didn't want to be, but it was kind of the only place I could get. Guess what saved me, guys? Guess what saved me? One of my fellow analysts from Rothschild. That's the only reason I got that job. So network to the rescue. So it's a really important, I've been fired. It's a really important point to drive home that it's who you know is really going to save your butt here, and how strong your relationships are and what your reputation is. So the only reason I got that job at Tailwind, a private equity firm in New York, was because I had a good reputation with that analyst. He knew I worked hard. He was confident that I'd be able to come in and do a good job, and I did. So yeah. So Philip, you were let go. So yeah, I absolutely would absolutely spread your wings a little bit. Start looking outside of just banking for sure. Of course, if you want to stay in the industry and stay in banking, that's totally fine. It sounds like you just started modeling. So it's kind of like tough because you're not like necessarily fully skilled. But I think, yeah, there's plenty of places you can get a lot of skills. And I think in future years, if you're re-interviewing for like a senior analyst position, I think it's a very easy story, knowing that you were let go kind of in the 2022 wave. So yeah, don't keep your head up. Yeah, Miranda, I was let go very fast from PE. So, I don't mind sharing my story. I think people are like afraid to share that. But, what I can tell you is it's probably one of the main reasons why Wall Street Oasis exists today, is because I realized that, it's not always about putting your head down and working hard. It's really like your career and your career management. That brings us back to career management, right? This skill right here, this skill right here is a life skill. Your interview skills are a life skill. Your people skills are a life skill that should not be underestimated. There's some people that just like despise the idea of networking. Well, okay, don't call it networking then. Call it relationship building. Call it friends. If you can develop friendships, true friendships, you can develop strong connections, have a good reputation, ask good questions, be genuinely curious about this industry and about what's going on. And don't just read from all these interview courses that are here on the slides. They have a networking course. They'll give you templates on what to say. But if you just copy those templates and you're not really interested in it, it comes across. You got to be genuinely interested in it. You got to actually be passionate about the stuff, or it's going to just, you don't stand a chance. You got to actually be interested in it. That's all I'm going to say. Cause like you won't have the depth as the person who is interested in it. Like, it's not that first question you ask, it's the follow-up question. And that means, like, in an interview, when you're asked, do you have any questions for me? That is like a huge opportunity to show how genuinely interested you are in that specific role, number one. But number two, it's a huge opportunity to even show that you know what the role actually is. So many candidates, they're like, I'm applying for a financial analyst role. And I'm like, what are you doing day to day there? And it's like, well, I think I'm just doing like some financial analysis. But like, what does that even mean? Or like, I'll talk to somebody, I'm like, what are you interested in doing? And they'll say to me, I want to go into finance. I'm like, oh my gosh, like that could be like 500 different jobs, all of which are super different. So like, if you really are interested in a finance career, it doesn't mean that you have to like know right away what you want to do. Like, do you want investment banking, asset management? Do you want VC? Do you want hedge funds? Do you want, whatever it is, real estate finance? Do you want management consulting? Do you want to be a trader? Do you want to be a quant? Do you want to be in equity research? They all have different personality types that tend to lend themselves best. So it's important that you like first learn who you are, but then also do research about like what the job actually entails. And so that's where like our community really, really thrives. It's free, everybody. It's free. There is literally over 500,000 discussions. I think over between 3 and 4 million comments on there. You can just read and read and read to your heart's content. You'll learn all the lingo. You'll hopefully laugh along the way a little bit, and you'll also probably get a sense of where you think you'll fit best. So I highly encourage those of you that are in the early stages, like exploring of where you want to go, that you become a member of the site and start asking questions and start reading some of the more insightful comments from some of our certified users. So for people who are not aware, the certified users are the ones with the gold stars around their username. That means they've been verified that they actually do work in the industry. That's indicated on their profile. So what else is going on? Any other Q&As, Amir?
Yeah, we have an interesting question based on what you've just said. How to start a conversation with someone I have not talked to in a while?
Hopefully you're not reaching out to them because you just lost your job. I think it's just try to pick up where you left off. Just say, hey, it's been a while. I'll say, hey, hi, Amir. It's Patrick. Been a while. Here's what's going on with me. I'm living in New York, working at XYZ Bank. Just wanted to see how things are going at XYZ. We'd love to hop on a Zoom or grab a cup of coffee. I'm in town. If they're in the same city, I'd love to grab a cup of coffee this weekend if you're available. I'm free all weekend. You try to make yourself super available. Or if they're in another town, you can say, I'd love to hop on a quick Zoom and just catch up. And like ideally, again, that networking call, that rewarming is not coming from a place of desperation. You really ideally are doing that before you lose your job. If you have lost your job, it should be a very low pressure type of chat. So meaning you're not trying to sell yourself to the firm or anything like that. You can just say, oh yeah, I was caught up in the layoffs recently. Just wanted to hear how things are over at Seems like they're doing really well. Wanted to hear. That person, if they have any sort of EQ, is going to understand that you want a job there. And if there is any opening and if they like you, they're probably going to ask for your resume. If they want to help you out. If they don't, then don't press it, because if anything, it's going to leave a better impression if you're humble and don't sound depressed. Just sound like, oh yeah, well, I'm in chats, I'm in several processes, blah, blah, blah. It's better to sound like you already have a plan and you're going through it and you're not desperate. If you're desperate and you're coming across as like, well, are there any openings? Can you get me an interview? Everyone runs from that person. So don't be that person. Have confidence, even if you have to fake it till you make it. Have confidence, talk to them, ask for an update. Try to establish a little more of a personal relationship. The whole thing shouldn't be just about job, 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 job. If they are big fans of the Celtics like I am, maybe you talk about the current what's going on with the Celtics and how they're dominating the entire NBA. Hell yeah. But yeah, so like that's the type of stuff that, if you actually were an NBA fan and you were a fan of a different team and you could talk trash to me and kind of joke with me, I would probably respond well to that, and it would go well. But like, if it's not you, that's okay. But like, trying to find a connection or something you can talk to outside of work with that person is going to likely make them enjoy your company more and actually like you as a person more. That's why the interest section on your resume, again, is so vital. People like leave it out, and I'm flabbergasted that people still do that. You realize like the interest section is usually when you sit down for an interview for the 90+% of people that have never even seen your resume. They're going to look straight down at your interest section, and then half the interview is going to be about whatever you list there. It's just flabbergasting that people don't put that there. It's a huge opportunity to make more of a personal connection with your interviewer, with your people you're networking with, everything. So, yeah,
we have 3 more questions, and then we can wrap up. Yep.
Cool.
What are some good topics to discuss on a networking call?
That's great. So then each networking call is a little bit different. If it's for somebody that's around your level, meaning it's a peer, you want to make it probably slightly less formal. You don't want to come across as like being too informal either. You're going to have to walk this balance where you're not like, hello. You're obviously not going to be like, hello, Mr. Curtis, and because they're your peer. You should just say, hey, Patrick, really appreciate you taking the call. I just wanted to connect, see how things are going at Wall Street Oasis, and hear, what you guys are up to. How's the family doing? Oh, you're in California now. Oh, I heard this was happening. Oh, blah, blah, blah. Oh, da, 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 da. So you start by trying to make it a little more conversational. And then from there, be like, yeah, I want to see if you had any advice. You can ask for advice. Be like, see if you had any advice. I recently was let go from Citi. And so right now I'm in several processes. I'm talking to, more middle market, lower middle market banks. I'm talking to a couple other bulge brackets in XYZ. Any thoughts in terms of like what else I should be doing? I'm talking obviously like people like yourself that maybe have some insight into like what other things I could do with my skill set, blah, blah, blah. And so like, if I had an opportunity at my firm or something, and I like you, I might be saying like, well, actually we have this, maybe for the time being, you could work part-time for us doing this. Or, hey, we actually have a lot of course development work we're doing for XYZ. You want to work on that for us while you're searching. Oh, and by the way, I have a friend you said you were interviewing here. I have a friend over there. Let me put in a good word. So it should be conversational at first, casual. Then you can be frank with them, tell them what's going on. Even if you haven't lost your job yet, you can be kind of like tell them, yeah, it's a little nerve-wracking. I think cuts are coming. So I wanted to kind of be a little preemptive and start, talking with more people, seeing what a possible next step might be. And you know what? Some firms, if they're small on the smaller side, they may allow you to pretend to be employed at that firm for a month or two before they officially cut you. So you don't have to take it off your LinkedIn right away. That gives you a little bit of window of time. So your gap is not longer. And that's something you should negotiate. Absolutely. Is say, hey, maybe you can stop paying me or stop whatever, but can I continue to put this on my LinkedIn as if I'm still working there? That's that's something you potentially could negotiate before you sign a release letter. If they're worried for liability reasons, you can say, hey, can I put something, at least leave it on my LinkedIn till XYZ date. I can be officially employed through this. And you can just not pay me a bonus or not pay me or reduce the severance or whatever it have be. That's worth a lot to be able to kind of have that there and be job searching while it looks like you still have a job. Because if you still have a job and you're looking, it's much easier to get another job versus I was let go, it's gone. Instead, you can on the phone calls, you can say, hey, yeah, I think cuts are coming. And, I get a sense that it's not looking good, blah, blah, blah. Artem's question, what is your take on pitching stock investment ideas when interviewing for buy-side roles? Does it make sense to model out the investment, build a pitch deck of your idea and be able to discuss it in this way when asked this question during the interview? Yeah, absolutely. If you put in work prior, I think it looks good. It looks like you're prepared. the question is it good or not? So after you do that work, Artem, I would make sure that you, I would actually make sure that you like have someone in the industry kind of screen it before you use it in an interview. And it's something that like, you know, if somebody brings it up in an interview, you could take it out, be like, well, actually I have this pitch, and I wouldn't have it be like super technical. Maybe keep the model and all that stuff and all those numbers in your head, but have like a, you know, a 3-page or something like that you can share from your folder or your portfolio that you bring up. Be like, actually, yeah, I really like this. I really like this stock right now, and this industry is being overlooked because X, Y, Z. Here's my investment thesis. Here's the upside I see. Here's the downside, and blah blah blah. So if like you come in and you show that you have something that's very well researched, it's more timely. I think it shows a passion for the industry. Absolutely. Then it could help you.
A question from Davey. Let's see. Is it better to ask for a call or a coffee?
A call or a coffee? A coffee. If you're in the same city, for sure, try to meet in person. I think it's always build strong relationships. Of course, if the person's avoiding you or whatever, you can always offer a call instead to try and it's still better to get on a call than nothing, right? It's still, especially if it can be Zoom and face to face, and they can show their face. I think it's still valuable. So that's what I would do. Thanks, Archon, for joining. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Hopefully this was helpful. You know, I'd like to do this more frequently if I can. So yeah, let's try to do it again, maybe in another month. We'll try to pick another topic, maybe one that's less depressing, a little more uplifting. Maybe we could do some fun ones based on like portfolio and stock market and stuff like that, and see how everyone's doing there and talk about different investment ideas. I was joking that I was going to make one of my people that works with, we argue Tesla bull and bear all the time. So maybe that would be a fun topic to debate online and get the community involved. That's it for now. Thanks everybody for your time. And yeah, if there's any questions, again, if you want to get these deals, they're valid for the next hour. So that means at 8 o'clock Eastern, they'll expire. You can email amir@wallstreetoasis.com to get the free resources we shared on the stream. So that includes the, where is it here? Not there. The networking template, that includes the resume review template, the resume template right here from Wall Street Oasis. We'll get that over to you so you can use that while you're polishing your resume. That's it. Thanks, everybody.